Welcome back to the channel. You're watching Sawtooth Tactical. And did we just lose the Made in Texas Suppressor lawsuit? Yeah, kinda. So this is a lawsuit that a lot of people were following very closely. A lot of people, and I did a video about this a little while back, a lot of people I've seen in my comments of my own videos, as well as on Facebook gun pages and stuff, a lot of people haven't gotten suppressors because they believe that they will be deregulated very soon and that the Texas Suppressor Freedom lawsuit was going to be the path toward that deregulation nationally. Well, the Fifth Circuit just sided with the ATF and dismissed that case. So we're going to talk about why, because the reason why they did, to me, is so ridiculous. And it's the way that our legal system works. And I understand kind of why it works that way, but it also puts the plaintiff in a case like that in a very, very sticky situation between a rock and a hard place in order to win. And I'll explain why. Make sure you're subscribed and let's get into it. So the reason that the court, the Fifth Circuit, three-judge panel, in fact, dismissed this case and sided with the ATF was because they said that the state of Texas, the plaintiff, lacked standing. Now, you might already understand what that means, but let me explain it to you in this case specifically, but also for a lot of gun cases, it's very similar the way this works. So in order to have standing, in order to challenge an unconstitutional gun law, you have to show that you are actually being injured by that gun law. Well, how do you get injured by that gun law? Well, you get injured by it by going to prison, basically. And that's not even being that dramatic. So in order for them to have standing, the court basically said that they would have had to show that not only did they plan to make suppressors in Texas out of materials and parts that made in Texas and keep them in Texas, therefore avoiding the interstate commerce, which is what the ATF supposedly regulates. So the ATF regulates interstate commerce. The ATF regulates a lot of stuff that we don't like, but the whole point of the Texas suppressor lawsuit was that they said that suppressors made in Texas for personal use that stay in Texas should not be regulated under the NFA because they aren't involved in interstate commerce in any way. Well, the way that this case went is that they, the plaintiffs, the state of Texas, on behalf of the people of Texas, said that, they planned to make suppressors in Texas for personal use that would stay in Texas. Well, they lacked standing according to the court. And the reason for that is kind of a scary reason, honestly. The way that this whole thing works, in order for you to win one of these cases, you have to walk a very fine line between going to prison or not, honestly. So, lacking standing. They said that they were going to make these suppressors. They did not say when. And they did not necessarily say that they were going to do it without going through the NFA process. And that's what the court wants them to show and wants them to declare, is that they're going to make these suppressors illegally, basically. That they're going to make them without going through the NFA process. And that's how they would get standing, because by doing that, they would be breaking laws and, risking going to prison. So the only way you can get standing in one of these cases is to risk incarceration, felony charges, losing your gun rights. That's a big risk to take. And according to this court, according to this three-judge panel, that's the only path we have to be able to win a lawsuit like this. I'd like to thank Aura, which is the sponsor of this video. Firearms can protect you and your family and your household from a lot of threats and provide you with a certain amount of security. Well, Aura can provide you with security from the things that you don't see and protect you from those threats. I've been using it for a few months now. When I first got it, I Googled my name and there was a lot of stuff that came up. And then I signed up with Aura and I watched as they took each and every one of those things off of the internet so that my information wasn't out there anymore. They do a lot of things, including identity and credit monitoring, password manager, antivirus protection. They have a VPN, home title monitoring, and then the big one is data broker removal. As you guys probably already know, scammers are a huge part of life now, which really sucks. But the way that they get your information is from data brokers. And Aura goes out there and they find those data brokers that have your information and they submit opt-out requests on your behalf, removing your information off the internet so that scammers don't have access to you anymore. The big thing that it's helped me with is I don't get spam calls anymore, and I've noticed that over these last few months that I've been using it. I just have stopped getting spam calls. If you want to support this channel, Sawtooth Tactical, the best way to do that is to sign up for Aura. You get 2 weeks free if you use my link, which is aura.com/sawtooth-tactical. And then it's only $12 a month for all of those things that I listed earlier. I really appreciate what Aura has done for the channel. And I appreciate that they sponsor firearms related channels. It says a lot to me about who they are. I value my privacy and I also value yours. I think that it's pretty crazy that the only way for us, and when I say us, I mean the people of Texas, I mean anybody that is sick of the NFA, that is sick of unconstitutional gun laws, that the only way to have standing in one of these court cases is to basically break the law, risk going to prison, becoming a felon, losing your rights, $250,000 fine, 10 years incarcerated, because then those penalties are what injures you personally, and then you are able to sue because you were injured by the unconstitutional laws. Without being personally injured by those laws, you have no standing. And so therefore, you cannot sue to challenge these laws without putting yourself in a major risky spot. And to me, that is just so messed up the court is literally saying that that's really our only path forward. Now, I'm sure that, smart lawyers can figure out how to walk that fine line and to declare that they are going to make suppressors and that they're going to make them, they also have to show that they're going to make them within like a certain amount of time. So they're going to make them within the next 2 weeks, and they're not going to go through the NFA process. I think, and I'm not a lawyer, and I'm not a judge, I think that could possibly work to show standing, even though they haven't actually done it yet, just declaring it. And then the fact that the hypothetical that if they went through with it, that they would be injured by the law, that may work. I've been looking at this and trying to figure out if that's an actual possibility, because this lawsuit might not be totally dead in the water. In fact, a lot of lawsuits aren't really hardly ever dead in the water, which is fortunate and unfortunate depending on the lawsuit. Like the pistol brace thing, it was just basically thrown out. Well, they can still appeal it, and we're still hearing oral arguments on it on August 5th. So even though it seems like it's done, it's not really done. Well, this Made in Texas suppressor lawsuit might be the same way. So what do I recommend that you do if you were waiting for this lawsuit to be the thing that was the catalyst that got the ball rolling to get suppressors deregulated and taken off of the NFA? Well, what I recommend is to just go out and buy a suppressor, pay for your $200 tax stamp, as unconstitutional as it is, and get yourself a suppressor. Because if you're waiting for something like this to happen, you might be waiting until your grandchildren are finally old enough to get suppressors. You might be waiting longer than that. The NFA has been around for a very, very long time, and it hasn't gone away yet. And suppressors have been on it that entire time. And so, if you don't believe in paying taxes, do you, boo-boo. But you know what? If you want a suppressor, there is really only one legal way to get them at this point. Well, two. A Form 4 and buy a factory suppressor like this OCL Polonium K. Or you could do a Form 1 and you can make your own suppressor. But even those you can't do with a solvent trap kit anymore or anything like that. You literally have to have a mill or a lathe, whatever. I am not a machinist, but I do understand a lot of things. You have to literally make it yourself, out of bar stock. You can't use a kit anymore. The ATF has said that parts that are made and intended to become a suppressor are already suppressors. So if you acquire those parts and you fill out the Form 1, you're basically telling the ATF that you already have an illegal suppressor, the way that they look at them now, which I totally think is not right, but it is the way that it is. And I'm not advocating for these unconstitutional gun laws in any way. If you guys have watched the channel and you know me, you know that I'm very much against this stuff. But I also understand that, sometimes you got to do what you got to do. I got to fill out a 4473 to get a lower or a complete firearm. Yes, 80% lowers, I get it. You can argue with me in the comments all you want. But I got to get a driver's license to drive my car on the road. You know what I mean? There are these things that, unfortunately, we have to go to, whether constitutional or not, and whether they are right or not. And what I believe is this, is that the more people that own these things, and when I say these things, I mean suppressors, I mean short-barreled rifles, short-barreled shotguns, NFA items, the more people that own them, the better. And honestly, so your $200 tax stamp doesn't just go to the ATF. It's not like the ATF gets that money and we're giving it directly to the organization that, we're trying to fight against. That's not how that works. It goes into the general fund. It's a tax. And you probably already pay taxes on your income. You pay sales tax. There's a lot of taxes you already pay. And while I don't really believe that any taxes are anything but theft, honestly, I'd rather pay a tax towards something that I really want than pay freaking 30% of my income away to the government. They didn't do that work. I did. So get your suppressors, or don't. But just understand that you're probably going to be waiting basically forever if you want to wait for these to get deregulated before you get one. And right now, the wait for a suppressor is literally shorter than ever. Now, that's not true for everyone. I literally had to contact the FBI and the ATF to get my last two suppressors approved. I was sitting at 2 months and about 4.5 months. But honestly, still way better than the 11.5 months that I waited for my first one. But a lot of people are getting approved within days right now, within a week, whatever. It's way faster than it ever was before. You still do have to pay the tax stamp. You still do have to get your fingerprints, your passport photo, do all the paperwork. It is what it is. But the more people that own these, the better. Let's get them as in common use so that it's just incontrovertible and that, they can never ban them because millions and millions of people have them. And eventually, maybe that will be a path to get them deregulated. And so in my opinion, getting a suppressor, even getting it through paying your tax stamp, is helping to finally get these deregulated at some point. Waiting for them to get deregulated isn't really doing you or anyone else any good. But that's just my opinion. Let me know what you think down in the comments. I love to hear from you guys. I try to answer as many comments as I possibly can. And I especially love talking to you guys about these kinds of discussions. This is unfortunate news that this case was dismissed and that they basically sided with the ATF. We've been getting a lot of good news on the Second Amendment litigation front lately. Well, this is not such good news. And it's unfortunate, but it's not necessarily dead. Things will happen. I can almost guarantee it. State of Texas can refile. They can figure out what that fine line is where they think that they can show that they have standing without actually going to prison. It's definitely possible. I do think that the reason why this case was dismissed, that you have to show that you're going to commit a felony in order to have standing, is kind of crazy to me, but it's how our system works. But if you enjoyed this video, please give me a like. Make sure you share it. And from Sawtooth Tactical, stay strapped or get clapped.